Highway 36 is a narrow strip of asphalt, cutting through the wild wastelands on the border between Shasta and Tehama counties. Locals don't call the area around the Bygum Gorge the dead zone for nothing. There's absolutely no cell service and it's dozens of miles of empty forest before you reach the nearest house. On May 25, 2024, the silence of this godforsaken place was broken by a police patrol that spotted something on the shoulder that didn't belong in that landscape. A light tan Chevrolet Avalanche sat there in a way that just didn't feel natural. It didn't look like a vehicle that had wrecked or broken down. The pickup was parked as if the driver had tried to hide it in the thick greenery, but at the last moment just walked away, leaving it half concealed. The officers approached the truck. In the hot May air trembling above the heated metal, there was a heavy specific smell coming from the tightly closed cargo bed. That biological marker of decomposition isn't something you confuse with anything else. Any seasoned forensic investigator recognizes it, and it always means one thing: there's a tragedy inside. They open the truck bed. To the officers' surprise, they didn't find a body, but at the bottom was a crumpled white sheet completely soaked with large brownish stains that had already begun to dry. The amount of blood on the fabric was critical. It made it clear that the person who lost it was unlikely to have left this place alive or on their own. A quick check of the license plate instantly returned the owner's name: Nikki Changeng Sally McCain. The Reading resident had been officially reported missing for 3 days, though there had been no actual contact with her for a whole week. Finding the truck 30 miles from her home instantly changed the status of the search. Now, detectives weren't looking for just a lost woman. They had a full crime scene. The truck was here. Signs of aggressive behavior were here. But Nikki herself was nowhere to be found. To reconstruct the chain of events that led to this strange parking job in the woods, you have to rewind time 7 days. The timeline of the disappearance begins on the night of May 17 to 18, 2024. In the sterile corridors of Mercy Hospital in Reading. Nikki had spent Friday evening in the intensive care unit. Her family was gathered there because Brian, her husband's brother, had been rushed in. The situation required relatives to stay around the clock, and with not enough vehicles to go around, it became a complicated logistical challenge. Around midnight, the procedures wrapped up and the family started to head their separate ways. At 12:35 a.m., Nikki's sister-in-law, Chloe, got a brief text message. Nikki wrote that she was getting behind the wheel of her mother-in-law, Jeanette's pickup. She said she needed to drive the truck from the hospital to her husband's mother's house to return the vehicle to its owner. That message was Nikki's last direct contact with close family. All that followed, the investigators had to piece together minute by minute based on witness statements and cell tower data. Nikki safely made it to Jeanette's residence and left the truck there. At the house, a family acquaintance was already waiting. That man later confirmed to detectives that he gave Nikki a ride from her mother-in-law's home back to her own place on Olinda Road. According to his account, when he dropped her off at the porch, he noticed a light on inside and could make out the silhouette of Tyler McCain. Cell tower data provides the final confirmation of that night's route. Exactly at 3 a.m., Nikki's phone pinged a tower right near her home. A clear digital footprint showing she had entered the house. Inside, her husband was present. Just 1 minute later, Nikki's phone went completely dark. The signal was lost and the device was never turned on again. That digital silence marked the last time Nikki's phone ever connected to the outside world. Right at the most crucial moment. Later that morning, May 18th, the silence began to shift into something far more concerning. Chloe Sally sent her sister a message asking how Brian was doing, but got no reply. By midday, there was a small but ordinary reason to reach out again. Chloe needed to pick up her niece's sports jersey. Thinking it might have ended up at Jeanette's house, she asked her fiancé to stop by, but Nikki wasn't there. Jeanette said she hadn't seen her daughter-in-law since Nikki had dropped off the truck in the middle of the night. From that point on, the family's worry began to intensify. Not just because of the lack of contact, but because of the sudden change in Tyler McCain's behavior. Sisters Kay and Chloe were deeply familiar with the family dynamics. In the past, whenever Nikki and Tyler had arguments, he would bombard them with emotional texts. Tell her I love her. Ask her to come back. I messed up. That had been the predictable pattern of their codependent relationship. But this time, Tyler went silent. Instead of those familiar pleas for reconciliation, Tyler started sending short, cold messages. Have you seen her? Is she with you? He wasn't asking for his wife back. He was trying to figure out if the family knew where she was, as if he was already laying the groundwork for a defense. By May 22nd, after 4 full days of complete silence, Nikki's sisters realized this wasn't just another argument. Something was deeply wrong. Chloe Sally went to the Reading Police Department to file an official missing person report. Detectives immediately questioned Tyler, the last known person to see Nikki alive. He gave a version of events where after Nikki returned home that night, the two of them had an argument. Tyler claimed the disagreement escalated and Nikki chose to walk out of the house on her own, heading off on foot to an unknown location, but to her family, that story didn't add up. Nikki Changeng Sally McCain, by every account, was a mama lion. The idea that she would leave her home in the middle of the night without her car, without her phone, without calling her sisters, and leave her son and daughters behind with a man she had just fought with was completely out of character. It went against everything she stood for. To understand the gravity of what had changed, you have to look at the life Nikki spent decades building. The McCain family story didn't begin in police reports. It began in the lively halls of the Wind River Resort and Casino in Reading. Nikki Changeng Sally was born in Thailand, but spent most of her adult life in the United States. After moving From Washington State to California, she got a job as a waitress in the casino's gaming area. Her co-workers described her as the heart of the place. Loud, wildly loyal to her loved ones, and goofy in the best possible way. That's where she met Tyler McCain. He worked in the slot tech department. Quiet, reserved, sometimes painfully shy, the exact opposite of the woman he'd later marry. At first, that contrast seemed to work. By 2010, they were married. They settled down in a place with a fitting name: Happy Valley. Over the following years, Nikki and Tyler welcomed 4 children. For Nikki, being a mother became everything. She left her job to focus completely on raising them, while Tyler worked as a spa manager. But by 2020, that picture of stability began to crack. The pandemic hit. Tyler lost his job. And with it, something else changed. The man Nikki married seemed to disappear. Tyler started spending all his time in the garage, barely interacting with the family. Nikki suspected it wasn't just about depression. She feared it had to do with banned substances. What returned to the house each night wasn't the man she'd once known. It was someone unpredictable, someone dangerous. Between 2020 and 2023, the sounds coming from the McCain house shifted. The quiet that once filled Tyler's garage was replaced by shouting, loud enough to be heard from the street. Neighbors in Happy Valley became witnesses to a family unraveling. One night, they saw Nikki burst out of the front door, barefoot, clearly disoriented, and yelling for help. Witnesses later said they saw fresh scrapes and bruises on her face and exposed skin. By 2020, the situation inside the McCain household had escalated to a level that drew the attention of state agencies, child welfare services, after reviewing frequent police visits and the increasingly hostile environment, determined that the home was no longer safe for minors. All 4 of Nikki's kids were temporarily removed and placed under protective care. It should have been a breaking point. But even after losing her daughters and son and enduring the public shame that followed, Nikki kept going back to that house in Happy Valley. She was caught in the classic cycle of dependency on her aggressor, clinging to the belief that she could fix the marriage for the sake of her family. She never filed a police report, believing she could manage the situation on her own. What she didn't realize was that with every return, the danger only grew, and Tyler's sense of impunity deepened. The incident that would later form the centerpiece of the criminal case happened on the night of November 29, 2023. Just 6 months before Nikki disappeared. The entire assault was thoroughly documented in official police records. Nikki was in the bedroom getting ready for bed when she heard the front door open. Tyler entered the house but didn't say a word. Instead, he walked straight to the back door and locked it, cutting off her only path to escape. Wasting no time, Tyler pushed Nikki onto the bed. Using duct tape, he bound her wrists and ankles and covered her mouth. What followed was 3 hours of deliberate torment. He hit her, dragged her by the hair, and at one point dumped water from a flower vase onto her. Then he flipped her onto her stomach and began to strangle her with what she later described as a cord-like object, all while yelling threats to end her life. Around midnight, Tyler left the room. That moment gave Nikki her chance. She broke free from the tape, grabbed her keys, and bolted to her car. As she started the engine, Tyler ran out onto the porch and jumped onto the hood. Nikki didn't stop. She floored it, throwing him off the front of the vehicle, and kept driving. She made it to her mother's house, where her sisters rushed to meet her. They barely recognized her. Nikki's face was so badly bruised it looked unrecognizable. Both her eyes were swollen shut. That night, for the first time, Nikki told officers her husband had truly tried to end her life. The aftermath of the November attack moved swiftly from the hospital to the courtroom. Based on Nikki's testimony and medical documentation, police arrested Tyler McCain. He was charged with 4 serious offenses, including domestic battery, unlawful restraint, making threats to take a life, and aggravated assault. But the justice system faltered where it mattered most. At the bail hearing, Tyler paid his bond and walked free, remaining out of custody while awaiting trial. The date for Tyler McCain's final court hearing was set for June 3, 2024. For prosecutors, the heart of the case wasn't just the photos of the bruises. It was Nikki herself. Despite the pressure, she was determined to take the stand and testify against her husband. That testimony would have sealed his fate. The evidence was overwhelming, and the detailed account of a 3-hour assault left no room for leniency. If Nikki showed up, Tyler was going to prison. No question. But what happened next was more than coincidence. It looked like calculation. Nikki vanished on May 18, exactly 2 weeks before she was set to face her abuser in court. Her disappearance left prosecutors blindsided. Under the 6th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, every defendant has the right to confront their accuser. If the victim isn't available to testify in person, prior statements often become inadmissible. By July 2024, after weeks of unsuccessful searches, the district attorney had no choice but to drop all charges against Tyler in the domestic case. Without the key witness, there was no case. The strategy of silencing the opposition had worked. Tyler McCain walked out of court with a clean record, escaping accountability for the events of that November night, simply because there was no one left to point the finger. For nearly a year, Tyler lived as a free man, confident that without a body, he was safe. But that confidence crumbled on April 1, 2025, all because of a traffic stop. A highway patrol unit spotted a vehicle swerving erratically along Highway 299. The officers turned on their lights and pulled the car over. Behind the wheel was Tyler McCain. A routine check showed his driver's license had been revoked. That violation gave officers legal grounds to search him. In the back PRI of Tyler's jeans, they found his wallet. Inside, tucked between credit cards, was a driver's license, but not his own. It belonged to Nikki Changeng Sally McCain. The license, which should have been in Nikki's possession, was now found on the person who claimed she'd walked away from him a year earlier. But it wasn't just the presence of the card that raised alarm. It was the condition it was in. The plastic showed clear signs of heat damage. The ID had obviously been exposed to fire. The edges were melted. The lamination bubbled and darkened. That single detail shattered the story that Nikki had just walked away. People who expect a loved one to come back don't keep their documents in a wallet like a trophy. And they certainly don't try to destroy them. The burned card became the first physical proof that Tyler didn't just know what happened to his wife. He had actively tried to erase her existence. It was clear he wasn't keeping it for sentimental reasons. He simply hadn't finished the job. By the spring of 2025, investigators found themselves in a difficult legal position. They had DNA results confirming that the blood found on the sheet inside the Chevrolet belonged to Nikki. But blood inside a family vehicle alone wasn't enough to secure a conviction for a major crime. The defense could easily argue it came from a household injury or something as minor as a nosebleed. To move forward with the most serious charge, prosecutors needed a direct link between that blood and criminal intent. That missing link came from a confidential informant. Detectives connected with someone from Tyler's inner circle who, during multiple interviews, provided critical information. The witness stated that Tyler had personally admitted to committing the crime. According to the testimony, this wasn't a heated accident. During an argument, Tyler acted deliberately with one goal in mind: to permanently prevent Nikki from testifying in court. By August 2025, the puzzle finally came together. The burned driver's license in Tyler's pocket showed an attempt to destroy evidence. The blood in the pickup confirmed brutal aggression, and the informant's statement gave investigators what they needed most: a confession and a clear motive. The district attorney determined the evidence was strong enough to file a first-degree crime charge. After reviewing the case, a judge signed an arrest warrant with no option for bail. The operational phase of the investigation reached its turning point in August 2025. The Shasta County Sheriff's Office called a press conference, an announcement Nikki's family had waited 15 agonizing months to hear. Earlier that same morning, around 10:15 a.m., detectives executed the arrest warrant. Tyler Scott McCain was taken into custody without resistance and transported to the very courthouse he had walked out of a free man just 13 months earlier. At the briefing, the sheriff laid out the charges. The primary count was a first-degree crime, but prosecutors went further, classifying it as a crime with special circumstances. Investigators officially stated that the act had been carried out for a specific purpose: to silence a key witness in a criminal case. That designation elevated the case to the most serious level under the law, eliminating any possibility of plea deals or reduced sentencing. The bitter Irony of this case is that Tyler's plan to erase his legal history ended up having the opposite effect. Along with the new first-degree charge, the district attorney reinstated the entire slate of charges from December 2023. Domestic aggression, unlawful restraint, illegal possession of a firearm, and aggravated assault, all of which had been temporarily dropped due to the victim's absence, were now back on the table. And this time, they formed a crucial part of the foundation for proving his motive. Tyler McCain was booked into the Shasta County Jail. Unlike his previous arrest, this time there was no bail option. The judge ordered him held without release until trial. The man who, according to investigators, tried to destroy his wife's documents and erase traces of her blood, chose to remain silent. But the circle of evidence, from cell records to DNA, had finally closed in. For Nikki's family, the arrest brought a painful kind of truth. Once detectives confirmed the motive, the image Tyler had tried to maintain, that of a confused, overwhelmed father, collapsed completely. Her sisters, Kay and Chloe, issued public statements that carried a chilling message. This wasn't an act of uncontrolled rage. It was a calculated decision. In an interview, Kay, Sally Ford, said Tyler's actions revealed where his values truly lay. The life of the woman he had shared a home with for 14 years meant less to him than the prison sentence he was facing for past abuse. He was so afraid of facing accountability that he chose to do the unthinkable, hoping that the absence of a body would guarantee he'd never be punished. That calculation shattered the very lives he once vowed to protect. The couple's 4 kids were effectively orphaned while their father was still alive. Their mother was gone and their father was in a cell awaiting a possible life sentence. Tyler's fear of facing consequences led him to destroy not just one life, but an entire family's future. Now Nikki's relatives are left to explain to the daughters and son that the man who was supposed to protect them was the reason their mom will never walk through the door again. For Tyler, this was a desperate move to hold on to his freedom. But the cost of that move was beyond anything he could have imagined. As of now, Tyler McCain remains in custody awaiting trial. But even with the legal victory in motion, one haunting truth remains. The body of Nikki Changeng Sally McCain still hasn't been found. Under U.S. law, a conviction can be secured without a body, relying on a collection of circumstantial and physical evidence. Still, the defense will inevitably lean into that fact, arguing that without a confirmed cause of death, the entire case is built on speculation and offering the jury alternative possibilities. Investigators have not stopped searching, but the geography of Northern California is working against them. The terrain surrounding Highway 36, where the abandoned pickup was found, spans hundreds of square miles of rugged forest, dense brush, and deep ravines. It's a remote wilderness where traces can vanish within days. And the only person who knows the exact location of Nikki's final resting place is sitting in a solitary cell, choosing silence, still clinging to the hope that without a body, his guilt can never be proven. For Nikki's sisters and her 4 children, this story won't end with a judge's gavel. The family has made it clear that their mission now isn't just about seeing the guilty punished, finding closure. It's about getting answers. It's about laying Nikki to rest. The case remains open in terms of recovery efforts. If you have any information about the movements of a beige Chevrolet Avalanche in the Bygum Canyon area or along Highway 36 in May 2024, authorities urge you to contact the Shasta County Sheriff's Office immediately. The silence of this so-called dead zone must be broken for truth, for justice, and for Nikki.